Welcome to another edition of Uncommon Entrepreneurs Lunch and Learn series, where we're all at home, we're all reinventing, we're all figuring out ways to pivot our investments, businesses, and lives. And we're going to be tuning into you live on a weekly basis with top entrepreneurial minds that are advising people and entrepreneurs across the world. Today, we have three special guests. In the first half, we're going to be having Juletta Broomfield and Lisa Foulger. They're, just to give you a little bit of background, they're accredited dynamic growth coach duo compelled to make their dent in the universe by helping others to achieve their purpose and impact in the world. Their coaching is inspired by considerable entrepreneurial experience working with mid-sized companies and global career, because they've had global careers with HP, HSBC, and governments around the world. Partnering with Juletta and Lisa, clients gain a deeper understanding of themselves and a greater appreciation of the talent optimization, enabling them to effectively tie their people strategy to their business strategy. Lisa and Juletta's client success is built on trusting relationships, leading with purpose and vision, and maintaining a laser focus on clients' and stakeholders' needs. Their coaching fuels a strong bias for action, balanced with respect for people, and a robust financial foundation to achieve business outcomes. So welcome to the show. Appreciate you, ladies.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah. So we go back fairly recent. We were on a mutual webinar for Imaloa Institute out in, which is a beautiful retreat center that was recently built in Costa Rica. We, Uncommon Entrepreneurs has in talks of having a retreat out there. Given the shutdown, we're not have a specific date set. We're looking at September, but I know you advise them, you work with them, so it's kind of an interesting overlap on that end. So yeah, I'm glad that's we're on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, you're welcome. So today in the lesson, I think what you could reveal and give to the audience is your unique perspectives on where you see the business world at the moment. I mean, you have your pulse on the market. You're talking to entrepreneurs consistently. You guys, consult, companies across the world. So maybe just to fill in the blanks on the biography I had mentioned, and kind of tell people where you're at and what you guys are up to, if you guys wanted to briefly introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'll jump in, and Juletta will chime in as well. So we began our careers more in the corporate sector, but we've had quite a wide array of diverse experiences. Juletta and I connected nearly 13 years ago when I relocated with my family to Costa Rica, and Juletta and her family were already there, having relocated from California, but having lived in every, hemisphere of the world prior to that. So we've had a lot of entrepreneurial, small, medium, large, and corporate experiences. And I think the thing that we loved and saw woven through those experiences was growing talent, growing businesses, growing leaders. And so we began Goal Global, our company, together 3 years ago, and we worked with entrepreneurial leaders and their leadership teams to help them scale their businesses, really aggressively scale. And it's not just the size, revenue, profits, but it's the team, the markets, the geography, the customers, that they go after. And we really, really enjoy that. We have quite a diverse set of clients. Imaloa is one of our clients today in Costa Rica, but we have clients in the US and all through the Caribbean and Latin America as well. We love helping scale mindset. So scaling the entrepreneur mindset is really critical to us. It doesn't matter where it is challenged or what opportunity they see. That's kind of where we start. We love unleashing that and really, coming alongside them and helping guide the journey.
Amazing. Juletta, feel free to fill in if there's additional.
Well, I think that the only thing I would say here, Drew, is that it's a really, really exciting time for us, because many companies and many people are waking up to some huge challenges. And so we're being asked to help companies pivot, to help leaders rethink who they are and what their purpose is. And so it's extremely exciting period of our business. And we are actually reimagining our own business so that we can take advantage of this extremely challenging yet exciting time. So it's entrepreneurial time in my view. So it's great to be working with Uncommon entrepreneurs.
Appreciate that. Yes, it is a very uncertain time. And so when we were catching up, you were filling me in on, some clients that you've started to work with and some of the adjustments and pivots that you guys are making for with the market. Maybe, fill us in. I mean, a lot of us, you have a unique perspective on that.
Yes, so very quickly, Lisa, what I was chatting with Drew, and jump in when you want, is that with Imaloa in particular, it's in tourism, it's in retreats, It has a physical presence. And what do you do when no visitors can come in Costa Rica or wherever you are? What do you do? So what was really interesting at first, and it's not the only client, I would describe it not ungraciously, but got stuck in what their current constraints are. We have a physical space, we have certain competencies, so what can we do with it? And of course, there's very little that you can do with a tourism business when it's all based on a retreat. So Drew, what we worked with them is said, okay, really imagine, go to the spot where this is truly a constraint. You will never, ever get another physical presence customer ever again. What's it going to look like? And now they're starting to pivot into the digital world. And that journey, I don't know whether you want to comment on it, Lisa, but that was an incredible journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will share a little bit. So imagine, that was a frightening experience for the leaders. It was a frightening experience for us when, one day later, all of a sudden your business is down to zero and you have clients that have booked throughout the next 9 months canceling left, right, and center. But what we discovered, and I'm really proud of the leadership team at Imaloa, they really went to heart and found their inspiration and passion in something they've been wanting to do for a long time, but didn't have the time or space to consider it. And that was transforming themselves and creating a transformative experience for clients. And I don't want to reveal much because that's really theirs to share. And you're going to hear much about it because they're going to do a launch in June. But they are onto some really exciting new directions that is going to change the way they operate even when we emerge out of COVID. So they went down to their roots. They really discovered what their superpowers were, what they could imagine is possible in a reality that they wanted to create, and they went to work to put it into place. So exciting, terrifying, and I think a really rewarding growth experience for everybody.
So I would just add, Drew, a couple of C's that I always go to. Focus on your core customer and really understand that what their problem is, and go do some deep customer discovery when you're starting to pivot. Go to your competencies. What are you really good at? And you may find that it's not retreat center or tourism, but it's marketing and sales. It's a different core competency that you never thought about. Look at your constraints. Go remove them or put them in place and then brainstorm from there. And then I would add 2 C's, clarity of vision. Where do you really want to go? What's your why? Where do you want to go? And remember, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to get through fear, learning, and growth fast.
Yeah, maybe one more C. I'll toss in one more, which is communication.
Sure.
And this is really critical for the team. Not only communicating back to their investors, but communicating to their team. This is what we're going through. This is what we are struggling with. This is what we're excited about, and we need everybody on board. And the team really rallied and helped create that new vision and the new aspiration. But I can tell you that took a big toll. The level of communication was intense and it was really, really necessary. So that's something that we've seen across many clients, that in times of uncertainty, communication should be 2 and 3x what you think. And that's probably 2 to 3x what you were doing before.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some very key points. And you're right, not sitting back. I heard you say, look at your customer avatar, decide, what your core competencies are. Communication is key. Yeah, you're definitely hitting a lot of key parts. Any tips that come to mind that you shared with them or others on how to increase that communication, is if maybe there's other technology involved, or, tips for communication?
Sure. So one thing that comes to mind, we do a lot of work around conversational intelligence. So that is building trust in the language that you use. And we do this always, but in times of uncertainty, we have seen how critically important it is to allow people to express what they are, uncertain about, the fears, the uncertainties, the doubts, and be really vulnerable. And the leader sets the pace. When the leader shares, that they're afraid of some things, they're vulnerable, they don't have all the answers. That opens up the discussion to such a opportunity to build trust and vulnerability that everybody jumps in. So I think we have seen across many different teams the strengthening of teams during this really difficult time. And knowing that the words that you use creates the world we operate in is really critical. So everything we say either upregulates trust and encourages trust, or it erodes trust. So being really intentional with the language that we use, not only the amount and frequency and different modalities of communication, is really, really important.
That's good. Okay, yeah, you're right. The word choice and interesting. Is there any books or tools you'd recommend somebody could check out to learn more about that?
Certainly. So Judith Glassner is the thought leader behind conversational intelligence, and her book is titled Conversational Intelligence. I highly recommend it. She has many tools and many techniques. I'll just give one visual that might be really appealing to this audience. So think of a cocktail. You come into a meeting, you're going to serve a cocktail that is full of hope and optimism, which builds trust, which builds oxytocin and serotonin and all these connecting hormones. Or you enter in with a cocktail that is full of fear, uncertainty, and trust, creates a cortisone and an amygdala hijack. So when you come in, when you have a message to deliver, what do you want to serve? Do you want to serve a cocktail that's going to build trust, or do you want to serve a cocktail that's going to create fear? And when people are really fearful, there's a really great tool in the conversational intelligence body of knowledge and work, and it's called a trust meter. So imagine a gasoline tank. So on the left, you have empty, all the way to the right, you have full. When you're on the left, you have the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And people are skeptical. They're very protective. They're very guarded. So it's what they will share. It's what they will reveal. It's what they will ask, because they're preserving themselves, right? They're feeling like they need to protect themselves. As they move up the meter, they become experimenters. They're waiting and seeing. They're open to experiments. Basically, they're telling you, show me, prove it to me. Once they've seen positive proof, they start building momentum. They co-experiment and they co-create. And when you co-create, you have this dynamic team that can just do wonders. I mean, not only do they go above and beyond, but they believe. And they care about each other at a human level, not just at the business level. And that's extremely powerful. So in that vernacular, we talk a lot about, you can either listen to kind of prove your point or to convince somebody of your idea, or you can listen to connect. And when you listen to connect, you have the opportunity to unleash the we. And that we power, where trust is very pervasive in the culture, is super powerful to teams.
Lisa, this is fantastic. One of the things you shared before, Drew, is that the mindset is so important. And what Lisa just shared is, that's what we deal with first. Then we bring in all the tools, the business tools, the scaling up tools. But honestly, until you've got inside the head and moved that mindset, or understood where that mindset is, those business tools aren't very helpful. That you just go through the motions.
That's a great point. You're right. Focusing on the mindset and so forth. Interesting. Yep. And then you're mentioning scaling up in its importance. Like tell the viewers what that is, that concept, and I know that's a big part of what you guys do.
Absolutely. We focus largely on scaling up, but we also dip into many other tools, business tools and mindset tools to aggregate for the customer. So we're always focusing on the customer, going where they're at and what challenge or opportunity are they facing at that time, and where do they actually want to go, how fast, etc. And when we bring in scaling up tools, we're really looking at 4 decisions: strategy, people, execution, and cash. And you can imagine that envelops almost all the big decisions that you have to make in a company when you're going from startup to scaling up. And if you don't have a methodology to do that, what you find is you go into no man's land or you get stuck. And so the methodology actually helps you articulate your vision, get the right people on the bus, understand what cash you need to actually support a very differentiated strategy. So it all comes together, and then ultimately in execution, you've got the rhythm, the discipline, the focus, the priorities to actually achieve your differentiated strategy. Does that help, Drew?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, those four key elements encompass a lot. So kind of paints a broader picture of where they're at by having that kind of drawn out and clear. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. That's right. It brings enormous clarity. But again, you've got to have that mindset ready for that change. And that's where we also bring in another tool that is leading change. And we use a number of tools. One very simple one is the bottom line change, where it's a formula. And we just walk it through with customers and say, how much dissatisfaction do you currently have? What is your vision? What are the first steps? And add all that up or multiply it all up. And is that bigger than the resistance to change? Because if it's not bigger or better than the resistance of change, you're not going to see a change.
Interesting. That's a big point. Huh. Okay.
Are you getting an aha right now, Drew?
Yeah. This is, I mean, it's very key elements. And sometimes like when you're the, entrepreneur running the company, or in the forest looking directly at the tree versus, there's power in having a consultant or a third eye view looking down and helping you remember the battle cry of why you're doing what you're doing. So what maybe like for somebody out there that, hasn't invested in a coach or a consultant before, how would you both maybe, frame their mindset of how important that could be, and maybe that's what they don't even realize is what they need to get unstuck?
Yeah, it's a great question, because our clients generally find us through referrals or through networking organizations where they've heard us speak or they've experienced our coaching in some way, shape, or form. So often when we engage with a new client or even somebody that's inquiring as a prospect, we suggest that they do an assessment. And we have a range of different assessments, but one of the ones we love to start with is the 4 decisions there we have a range of different ways we engage. So, we can do mastermind type sessions. We can do sprints. A sprint, for example, is a 5-module, 1 hour per module experience, kind of a journey to get unstuck. So Juletta mentioned that at the beginning. Clients get stuck in many different ways. So our first module is, where are you stuck? It's kind of a grounding experience, and really taking stock of where you are and what's most challenging and what's most interesting that you want to break through the challenge to achieve. And then we focus in on the leader. So think of, put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help anybody else. We really focus on the leader's mindset, because the leader's at the helm of everything else that follows. So when you have a healthy leader and that person has a great vision and an inspiration and a passion to achieve it, a real purpose, a why for why they're in the business, then that becomes really what's the word I want to look for? It just encourages everybody to follow, and it's passionate.
Passionate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we go to clients, because in a business without clients, you don't need a team, right? So we go to team after client. Sometimes we get the question, why do you go to clients before team? Because you really need to understand the client and who are you serving and what are you building your business and the team around to achieve. And then we go to team, and then we go to planning. So that's just kind of a bite-sized way in a sprint, a real manageable, palatable way to experience a process that's meaningful for your business. And then we have an executive forum where we do groups of CEOs that travel a 1-year experience together, kind of working on their business side by side. Often it's really powerful to learn about your business from others that have different industry experience, different geography experience, because it forces you to look outside of the box of what you're very comfortable with, right? And then we have the teams that go all in. And what I mean by that is that they take their leadership team through a journey. It's usually 1 to 3 years. And there's a process. There's a rhythm of things that we do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. So there's kind of something for everybody in that engagement experience.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be putting the link below to schedule getting that free assessment and in an hour call, just to get a different perspective is pretty critical. And the outlines of what you're saying are definitely something that, every company could use to tweak and to think differently. So we're kind of, wrapping up last 5 minutes, maybe to pivot the conversation to this current moment, advice that you're seeing, maybe other ways you could see people pivoting their businesses, or maybe if there's a specific industry that stands out that you see is going away or is an opportunity people maybe haven't discovered will be more prolific going forward. What do you guys kind of feel like in this moment? How should somebody pivot?
It's a very, very good question, Drew. And one of the things that we strongly recommend for entrepreneurs is to go look at the macro picture of what's happening to their core customers and also to their environments around them, and also to go beyond, to think globally. For example, Lisa and I have been very focused in our coaching in geographic locations in the past. There's absolutely no need to be focused on geographic locations. So when you're looking to pivot, I come back to that core customer, those competencies, and the clarity of your vision is really important. So think about the entertainment business. If you actually look within the entertainment business, you've got Disney theme parks, they don't exist anymore. You've got cinemas, they don't exist anymore. Yes, in the sense of they don't have customers. Sure. But then you look at streaming video or streaming services, what's happening? It's going nuts. So as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, this is the time for really out of the box thinking. Get that vision, understand why you want to do something in the world, and then start looking for those opportunities. And you might find it's a completely different industry and be open to that. It's scary. And that's why we talk about that change curve going from comfort to growth. This is the time to challenge yourself as a CEO and an entrepreneur. And Lisa always says, go get your kitchen cabinet. Go get advisors. Go talk to people that you normally wouldn't. And just bounce things off of your brain cycles, yeah? Get those gray cells really working. And that's sometimes hard in virtual. Lisa, anything else you would add there in the pivoting world?
I think go bold. So, think of the wildest, craziest ideas and then work backwards. Don't hold back. I think in these times of uncertainty, it's the perfect opportunity. You've got more time generally. Your team is more vulnerable. You've probably strengthened those connections and bonds. So use that to your greatest advantage to dream.
Yeah, that's good advice. You're right. It's good to sit back, take it all in. Like you said, look at the macro perspective of what's really happening. I see your point with Disney and the movie theaters. Yeah, it's definitely a time of reflection. So maybe kind of wrapping things up, is there a tool, a book, a software, something to improve somebody's life that comes to mind that might you want to pass on?
Scaling Up, Vern Harnish. It's a brilliant read. The challenge with it, it's packed, Drew. It's packed. You got to keep reading it, but it's worth the read. Scaling Up by Vern Harnish is worth it. Would you agree there? Anything else, Lisa, that you learned?
All of the teams we work with study that, and what we can do working with you as coaches is bring it alive and help you apply it to your business, because it's a textbook in essence with a lot of great examples, but it really takes discipline and focus to apply it. But the teams that do so reward tremendously. So it's a fun journey. It's an aggressive, strap in and enjoy the ride experience. And we'd love to share that with you.
And
I think a key
sorry, Drew, I was just going to say, Vern is doing some fantastic summits, virtual summits at the moment, Lisa, and they are reasonably priced, Drew. So that's another kind of blow your mind, as it were, for 2 hours. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's key, because a statement you made earlier, which is kind of encompassing a lot of the conversation, is it's working on your business versus working in it. And, right now we have a chance to take a step back. And so, yeah, I think you've left a lot of great wisdom. Appreciate you both coming on. And yeah, click the link below and the information. We'll be putting it out there for you guys to, even if you're watching in the future, their services could still apply to what you're doing. But thank you for coming on, and we're grateful.
Thank you very much, Drew. Thank you very much, Uncommon Entrepreneurs.
Yes, our pleasure. Bye.
Bye. Talk soon. Welcome to Uncommon Entrepreneurs 3.0. My name is Drew. We formed Uncommon Entrepreneurs in September 2019 as a way to create a networking atmosphere to unify the local Puerto Rican entrepreneurial eco center. We're here today in beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico, shooting. We're pivoting in some ways. The business had started with us bringing 100 to 200 entrepreneurs together on a monthly basis to network and meet together, etc., and exchange ideas, with the idea of bringing people that are down here for ACT 2022, those that have moved for other reasons, and those that are in the local Puerto Rican community all together to exchange ideas, etc. So now that we've entered this new normal where everybody is at home and looking for ways to pivot and to adjust and etc., we still have a need to connect as a community and share ideas and share skills and share details that we all bring together. So we're launching a new Lunch and Learn series where you have the opportunity to tune in on a weekly basis at 1 p.m. live and catch a 20-30 minute clip of a local entrepreneur, for the most part, that is talking about skills that they've developed, that of how they're pivoting, how they're making moves, what tools they're using in today's structure, etc. So you can find it live on Facebook. You can find it live on YouTube, and then we'll be reposting it on our YouTube page for Uncommon Entrepreneurs, so you can see below on the details on how to subscribe and all that type of detail. We're going to be interviewing many different local leaders in this community. If you personally have a message to share that you think would be beneficial to the audience with a skill that you've mastered, etc., or perspective on how you see the economy heading, or have a product or service that you think that would be good for this community to be aware of, feel free to reach out to us at the details below, and we can communicate with you on that. Or if you have somebody you recommend that should be speaking, let us know about that too in the details. And as we see names getting repeated in industries that you're looking to get more information on coming up, we'll make sure to target interviews around those themes. So our objective is very simple: to connect locally within this ecosystem that is San Juan, and to be an example for the rest of the world. So if you're not down here, you can see how you could build a similar community where you're at, where we're connecting these local entrepreneurs with different skill sets and backgrounds to help each other, overcome this uncertain time in history. This is who we are, and this is who we're not, to see if this connects with you, because this isn't for everybody. We are for people that are solution-minded versus problem-minded. We're for people that are for collaboration versus competition. We're for people that are with new ideas, open-mindedness versus old thinking that got us to where we have at the current moment. We're for a growth mindset. We're for learning versus just fixed mindset. We're for abundance versus scarcity. We're for faith versus fear. We're for acceptance versus judgment. We're for free enterprise versus government control regulation. We're for mentorship, passing on to the next generation versus hoarding everything for ourselves and the talents that we've gathered, etc. So continue to tune in. We're going to be listing our live events as they come along in the coming weeks, and jump in. This is meant to be for the community to collaborate. We want your feedback. We want the type of information you want to hear, so that you can be. Welcome to Uncommon Entrepreneurs 3.0. My name is Drew. We formed Uncommon Entrepreneurs in September 2019 as a way to create a networking atmosphere to unify the local Puerto Rican entrepreneurial eco center. We're here today in beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico, shooting. We're pivoting in some ways. The business had started with us bringing 100 to 200 entrepreneurs together on a monthly basis to network and meet together, etc., and exchange ideas, with the idea of bringing people that are down here for Act 2022, those that have moved for other reasons, and those that are in the local Puerto Rican community all together to exchange ideas, etc. So now that we've entered this new normal where everybody is at home and looking for ways to pivot and to adjust and etc., we still have a need to connect as a community and share ideas and share skills and share details that we all bring together. So we're launching a new Lunch and Learn series where you have the opportunity to tune in on a weekly basis at 1 p.m. live and catch a 20-30 minute clip of a local entrepreneur, for the most part, that is talking about skills that they've developed, that of how they're pivoting, how they're making moves, what tools they're using in today's structure, etc. So you can find it live on Facebook. You can find it live on YouTube, and then we'll be reposting it on our YouTube page for Uncommon Entrepreneurs, so you can see below on the details on how to subscribe and all that type of detail. We're going to be interviewing many different local leaders in this community. If you personally have a message to share that you think would be beneficial to the audience with a skill that you've mastered, etc., or perspective on how you see the economy heading, or have a product or service that you think that would be good for this community to be aware of, feel free to reach out to us at the details below, and we can communicate with you on that. Or if you have somebody you recommend that should be speaking, let us know about that too in the details. And as we see names getting repeated in industries that you're looking to get more information on coming up, we'll make sure to target interviews around those themes. So our objective is very simple: to connect locally within this. All right, welcome back to another edition of Uncommon Entrepreneurs Lunch and Learns. I'm here with the wonderful Melissa June Rowley. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Excellent.
Appreciate everybody tuning in. Just to give you guys some background, if you're not familiar with Melissa, we're out here in beautiful Villa Vista in Mayoez, which is connected to like Homebase, interesting startup and kind of like a co-living community type concept that we've been hanging and chilling at for the last period of time, and all that. So to get into Melissa's background, she's worked on the forefront of tech, media, and social change as a prominent writer, entrepreneur, and speaker, as a contributor for BBC News and Forbes. She covers the business and technology and entrepreneurship sectors. She's also the founder of Warrior Love Productions, a content strategy and production house developing media projects designed to foster cross-cultural understanding and collaboration. For over a decade, she's produced storytelling strategies for clients, including global brands, startups, and venture capital firms with more than $23 billion in assets under management. A passionate advocate for promoting peace through entrepreneurship, Melissa launched the accelerator Resolve, which coached entrepreneurs in Lebanon to incorporate sustainable and positive impact into their operations and offerings. Prior to co-founding Resolve, she built the humanitarian tech platform, The Toolbox, with legendary musician Peter Gabriel. On camera and online, Lisa has hosted a series of events at the United Nations, the Super Bowl, and a number of interactive shows. In her early careers as a TV producer at CNN and the Associated Press, she flew in a zero-gravity NASA and produced business news segments from the New York Stock Exchange and interviewed entertainment luminaries at the Emmys, the Grammys, the global Golden Globes, and Oscars. Quite a mouthful of background, but it gives a lot of perspective into the lens that you've seen over the years. So excited to get into this conversation. So yeah, maybe to fill in the blanks, we're sitting here in sunny Puerto Rico. Maybe what's your background? How'd you make it here? And start with that.
Yeah, so I'd say for most of my adult life, I was flying a lot between New York, LA, and San Francisco, working in television. And in 2010, I started my own business, my own content strategy business, developing storytelling strategies for companies. And I really didn't have a vision for that when I did it. I did it out of sheer desperation. The recession was happening, and I was a freelance producer for CNN at the time, having the time of my life, interviewing celebrities at the Oscars, Golden Globes, movie premieres, going to visiting sets, having a great time in Los Angeles. That was a really fun chapter and a crazy time. And then the work was just drying up. The well was drying up. And then pretty soon the economy was in recession. I had no idea what to do. I moved to San Francisco, lived on my best friend's couch for 6 months. I nearly had to file for bankruptcy.
Wow.
And then there were people around me saying, why don't you start your own business? I said, I have no idea how to do that. I'm just a journalist. I don't know. I'm a starving journalist. That's my identity. And things started to really shift when I began meeting really brilliant entrepreneurs in the Bay Area and in different parts of the world who were harnessing technology for social impact. This was when everything was location, mobile, and social. Was it LOSO-MO or something? That was the acronym that was going LOSO-MO or something like that. But I started learning about that, writing about that, making $15 for blog posts. Wow. So I obviously wasn't really making a living. I was still living on my best friend's couch. And then I got offered a job at E! Entertainment down back in Los Angeles. So I didn't want to leave San Francisco. I was kind of developing my community there, but I needed a real job. So I packed everything I owned in my Ford Mustang again, drove back down to Los Angeles, signed a lease on an apartment I could not afford, and started to drive to do the morning show every day. The show got canceled 3 weeks later.
Wow.
So I was really like shit out of luck. And I talked to my parents and they said, you're going to have to file for bankruptcy. We can't help you. And that's when I started the business, the content strategy business. I struggled really badly for the first few years because a lot of my clients were nonprofits or startups which I really love working with those kind of organizations the most because of the heart and soul and the commitment they make to their mission. But a lot of times startups that are just starting out, they lose funding. The first thing to go is their content or their marketing or their storytelling, right? They don't have time for that. They need to build the business and get investors and build the product. And so they hire people like me to do their storytelling. Yeah. But then, I'd say 5 years in, I started to get bigger clients, really large global brands, big investors. And through having the flexibility of being an entrepreneur and being able to work anywhere in the world, I started traveling on my own to different countries to learn about their tech for good ecosystems. And I put those stories into my own personal brand that I've been cultivating over the years as a journalist, where the intersection is tech, social impact, and global entrepreneurship. And everything really the most recent years has been around breaking down cultural borders through spotlighting innovators around the world. Then I lived in London for a couple of years and decided to move back to the States to be closer to my family when my father found out he had lung cancer. He's in good health now. But I really didn't have a home. I was wandering, thinking about San Francisco again. I've lived in New York 3 times, can't live there again full time. Love the city, I just can't be there full time. I start to become really angry and aggressive when I'm in New York long term. And so then I thought about LA. None of these cities were sitting with me. They weren't resonating with me. And I came to San Juan, Puerto Rico on a long weekend vacation in July. And by the second night, I decided to move here. And it was really because I just felt like the energy and the atmosphere was calm and healing. I loved the community of mainlanders I met. I loved the community of locals that I met. I only met a handful of people, maybe 10 people that weekend, but I just said, I'm just going to move here. And 2 months later, I made the move.
That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't know a lot of that.
No, a lot of it's new, which is, it's good to kind of get that context.
Yeah.
And so what is Puerto Rico meant for you? How, somebody that's maybe, you have a unique perspective too after your time, but.
Yeah, I've only been here about 7 to 8 months so far, but in that 7 to 8 months, things have happened. We had a series of earthquakes happen in January, and there's still tremors because of the tectonic plates just being at battle with each other. Yeah. So people in the West and the South are still feeling that. I haven't heard any reports recently, but I think tremors are still happening. And, now with the pandemic, obviously, small mom and pop businesses are closing, everything's going online, people are going hungry all over the world. But I would say my main commitment and what's keeping me in Puerto Rico is, in addition to friends and community with people like you and people that really want to make a positive impact in their community, I feel like there is, I've seen so many amazing people here with a lot of ingenuity and drive. And I don't think that gets enough attention from outside of this island. A lot of the news that I saw about Puerto Rico before I moved here was emphasizing the natural disasters or the corruption or the crypto community. Yeah. And the crypto community, I'm glad it's here. It's brought attention to Puerto Rico. But in addition to that, there are a lot of other things happening. In addition to the tax incentives, there's a lot of things happening. And there are entrepreneurs coming out of programs like Parallel 18 and other accelerator programs here. And I think that because of the ability of the people of Puerto Rico to adapt, because they don't know any other way, resilience is just kind of a lifestyle for people in Puerto Rico and other countries I've been to. That to me never stops being fascinating, because that means the innovation, the creativity that's coming out of it is going to keep evolving and changing over time. I mean, I have nothing against Silicon Valley. I lived there, but I don't need to see another mobile app that tells me where to take my dog to take a walk. I don't need, I don't know. Yeah. I just, everything, we create things based on the demand of our customers that we're seeing the opportunity, and the demand, there's more demands in the world beyond commercial, and I think that there are ideas all over the world in different startup ecosystems that can be replicated in other parts of the world, or that can be scaled. And there might be an idea that starts in a small community that can be scaled in a larger community on the opposite side of the planet. Yeah. So, I would love to be traveling right now, but, I think being in a place like Puerto Rico where things are happening and I'm seeing entrepreneurs do interesting things is just as good.
So I think a key part we had chatted, and you just hit on that idea of sharing ideas across cultures. So I know you're launching Border Breakers, which you can get into in a second. Maybe let's pivot the conversation to what have you seen work other places? What have you seen work here? Just in general, like idea sharing for like an entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Right. So I lived in Lebanon. I lived in Beirut, Lebanon for about 6 months, 3 years ago. I was based in London, but I was spending a lot of time in Lebanon developing this program with entrepreneurs there. And it was focused on creating the understanding and the mindset that a company doesn't need to necessarily be a social enterprise or a nonprofit in order to have a positive impact in their community. Their product or offering doesn't need to be social good, right? It would be great if it was. It doesn't need to be. Companies can make simple tweaks in their operations and in their hiring practices or in their culture that has a tremendously positive effect on their community. And then I think if they were broadened out that way and their messaging was made known to impact specific investors, they would have a larger pool of funding to reach out to beyond just the normal VCs that they might go after. So that was one of the reasons we decided to do that in Lebanon, because Lebanon is probably 3 to 4 years behind the United States in terms of technology and access.
Sure.
But there's still a burgeoning ecosystem there. And again, like Puerto Rico, I just love that these people never quit.
Yeah.
They just keep going. I mean, they have, I felt very safe in Lebanon, but at any given time, something could happen if a country decides to just like attack one of the political leaders there. And it hasn't been that long since the last civil war took place there. And so I was living there, and I met a number of entrepreneurs doing interesting things. I met a woman that has a company called Proximy. So she developed an AR platform that allows medical professionals working in conflict regions or in war zones to receive training from people in other locations and guidance. And obviously very, very useful in a war zone or conflict region, but that could be useful anywhere. That could be useful right now. That could be useful if there's a second wave of COVID, which many experts are predicting there will be. We may need to open up more buildings to expand hospital services. It would be great to be able to communicate with people that aren't necessarily on the ground floor with them, but still have access to that training or guidance. And so I love that idea just because of how universal it is. In Puerto Rico, a lot of you watching from Puerto Rico are probably familiar with a company called Produce, and then with a company called Uva. I love this story because Uva was founded by it's a sister and brother team, right? So, Produce, the subscriptions for Produce and Uva, they're both delivery services. They've spiked in the last 4 weeks to 8 weeks since lockdown began. And Uva was mainly delivering food from restaurants, but they expanded their services to essential needs, so pharmaceutical needs, things like that. They even deliver exercise equipment. I got a yoga mat from them. So they're, for obvious reasons, because people they can go out now, but weeks ago it wasn't as loose. It's loosening up more. And then Produce, all of the produce that they deliver comes from local farms here in Puerto Rico, and they're an island-wide service. So is Uva. And so since this uptick is happening, we're starting to wonder, would it be possible for Puerto Rico to be more self-sufficient and self-sustaining and not rely on 80% of imports to keep going? So, I mean, I think that's a possible model. If that actually comes to fruition, that could be beneficial for other islands or just other communities that depend on places outside of their environments to live and to eat.
That's interesting. So on Friday, we're interviewing Major Dream, who's an agropreneur, and it's that same idea of connecting the farmers to the people that are looking to buy the products. And what a good solution. It helps to cut down the import, if that's what you meant.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of ideas like that sprouting up. I think probably there are a lot of ideas already in the oven baking right now around the world around how local communities can be more self-sufficient and not rely on cities or not rely on imports because the supply chain system is not working for us.
Exactly. You keep the money in the community. We watched a good documentary called Tomorrow recently, which kind of hit on how other communities have been able to do that successfully, so you can model, which kind of ties into what you've done with all your traveling is you've seen what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, I know it's better, and we've had this conversation to focus on the kind of like the solution mindset of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of my main goals as a writer the past couple of years has been to really create, like you read in my bio, cultural understanding among people in different parts of the world,
Sure.
right? So before I spent time in Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, where else was I? Morocco. I spent some time in Dubai. Dubai is a different animal than the other countries I just listed, but plenty of amazing things happening in Dubai as well. But before I started spending time in those countries in the Middle East and North Africa, I had no idea that how much ingenuity there was there. I had no idea that there were refugees building startups. I had no idea that there were all these coding boot camps for people that were displaced from their homes because of the Syrian war. I had no idea. And these people are risking their lives doing this. You know, I wrote a story for Forbes Women about 3 young women in Syria, in Aleppo, that were, while I was on the phone with one of them, she was on her way to go lead a hackathon in Aleppo. And this was just a few weeks after there was a major explosion in that city. You know, this is at the height of what was happening, what has been continuously over the years been happening in Syria. And I said, how are you not scared? And she said, you know, there's always a positive impact to crisis. And this is it.
Interesting. You're right. So it's more of a mindset looking for that positive impact.
Yeah.
This is good. So maybe pivoting a little bit, storytelling. I know that's a big part of like how you've helped clients in the past. I know you're launching an e-course coming up on the subject. You know, everybody's at home and looking to reinvent themselves. And one of the key elements that we've discussed is the importance of having like clarity in your brand and, you know, having that, you know, proliferate out so people understand what you're about. Maybe tell people some background on that and a tip.
I mean, the background is, I mean, I don't really know how to do anything else other than storytelling. I mean, I've had other kinds of jobs outside of journalism and producing, but everything leans on my ability to craft and tell a story and sound convincing.
Sure.
I mean, I think the main thing that is important for entrepreneurs right now is to be very clear on what the problem is that you're addressing. And there's different ways to pitch. I've judged a lot of pitching competitions all over the world. A common way that many viewers are probably familiar with is to start with the problem and then to go into how your company's addressing it, and then to go into more background of the company, the projections, the team, all that really important information that investors want to know. But sometimes I see people pitch and they start with who they are and what they're doing. I don't necessarily think that's wrong, but you have to be really clear on the problem. And something else that's really common in the startup world is there are really great ideas out there, but there are solutions looking for problems. Now, I don't always think that's a bad thing, because that means you're being forward thinking and being futuristic. And quite frankly, as the current time is showing us, we need to be thinking that way.
Yes.
But an investor that's going to put down money right away just wants to know how much you believe in what you're doing and what's the real problem? What is the need right now?
Sure.
Not 2 years from now, what is the need right now? So one of the main things that I do when I'm helping companies craft their company narrative for internal purposes is just really understanding the problem inside and out, knowing the problem's story. And then we get into, what are your competitors doing? It's really important to know their story as well as your customers. And then you can get into what your story is and how you're different, what your secret sauce is, what your creative or your technological advantage is. And then the sky's the limit. Just keep going as far as you can go. And then we extract and pull the key messaging and positioning points. And then those go into your pitching materials, your blog, your thought leadership articles,
your social media content.
Exactly.
But
there needs to be a general base. I mean, I meet so many founders who are so brilliant. They don't have time to be thinking. I mean, you know, they need to be thinking about how to continue making the product better, or they need to be securing their funding. And so maybe they have an internal team to figure out their story, but maybe they don't. But sometimes, you know, people don't need someone consistently holding their hand, giving them content strategy advice. They just need the framework of how to figure it out themselves, and then they can go. So that's why I'm creating this course, is for people that actually you know, as long as you give us some guidance and a blueprint, we can figure it out from here. We don't need to have a call with you every week. I'm happy to do that with clients that hire me for
Sure.
that, but there are a lot of people there that are very creative and they can do it internally.
That's good. And so you're right, the class is kind of, and I've already been through a lesson. We've talked about this some and fill in the blanks on this. The class is going to be a great way for people to just go through a step-by-step process of, you know, identifying, you know, the problem, the solution, their client, maybe fill them in on what they can expect on that front and you know, what somebody would leave after taking it.
Well, you can expect by the end of the course, you will have a fully written, fleshed out narrative for your company. So you will have positioning and messaging key points about your problem, about your about your competitors, about you, your secret sauce, and why you're the best option in the market, right? So in addition to the messaging, here's who we are, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. That's the messaging, right? But what is your position against everything else going on? What is your position against what's happening in your sector? What is your positioning against your competitors? And then we can also, there's a bonus class I'm doing on thought leadership. I'm not a big fan of the word thought leader, but I don't know what else. I don't know what else to call it. I want to create an entirely new vernacular for the whole content marketing industry though. But there we get into a lot of the fact that a lot of people come to me or other journalists and ask, you know, I want to be a contributor for Forbes or Inc., or I want to have a piece written in another publication, or I want to be an expert commentator on CNBC on topics pertaining to my industry. And so we'll be diving into what topics really are most suitable for you to be talking about based on your position as a CEO or founder of your company. And we'll be looking at ways you can look at what's going on in the world, top headlines, news, or other topics that you would like to have receive more attention, and looking at, you know, is it really aligned? Is this topic really aligned for you to be talking about? Or is there a way we can make it align with that? And then we go into what is your tone of voice? What is your perspective? You know, sometimes when I work with startups, they have a great company story, they have a great product, but then when it comes to the thought leadership part, we need to work on, great, but what is your perspective on what's happening in your industry? That's when you become an influencer. That's when people start to really care what you're talking about, right? Yeah,
that makes sense. Focusing on the industry. Interesting.
And how do you make that story? How do you make that content? How do you project it? How do you create it in a way that is very true to your company's brand, and you're able to get your message out there without being super self-congratulatory or super self-promotional, right?
Yep.
There's a tasteful way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it in native advertising and things like that, but some of it, you know, or we just see like a logo somewhere. Like when BuzzFeed was doing, I think BuzzFeed is still doing this, those native advertising articles. Will do maybe Downy, the paper towel company, is the sponsor. And then so the blog post is focused on like 15 ways to clean your house in a fun way, right? And then the article never once mentions Downy, but it's going into the fact that Downy's a quicker picker upper and can help you like speed along your day. And I'm totally making this up.
But it's a good perspective to give the analogy.
Or if there's like an 80s, I don't know, some kind of company that's wants people to feel nostalgic about the 1980s, right? And then they're the sponsor of that piece of content. And so then all the content's going to be focusing on like the top 7 80s movies to really make you feel at home and take you back to simpler times or whatever. Like fine, if your brand is a company that's promoting 80s paraphernalia or something, it's okay to be talking about that kind of thing.
Sure. Interesting. Okay. So pivoting to kind of wrap things up, and you know, how do you see the world economy? How do you see things transitioning? I'll leave it broad, but how do you see the road ahead? Is there industries that people should be going into or out of? Like how do you see things unfolding?
I have a very blurry vision. I shouldn't say that. I don't know the road ahead 6 months to a year from now. We already are seeing signs and data, though, of industries that are going to do well during a mid-COVID and post-COVID, or when we go back into COVID, if there's a second, third wave, whatever happens, depending on access to invention of vaccine and access. Telehealth, big, is obviously huge. Any video streaming, video conferencing services. Online well-being, yoga, fitness, spiritual healing, somatic therapy, EFT therapy. We're seeing a big boom in that, which is great. More online access to things that people can do in their home, obviously. So these are all pretty obvious. But I mean, there is data. I don't have the exact stat with me, but I did see data recently that Y Combinator has received an uptick in applications for their next application process.
Nice.
Which is interesting, because I'm curious, are these startups are they designed in response to COVID? Like, are these new ideas that just came up the last 2 months, or are these startups that have been, chugging along and they're like worried about COVID maybe?
Exactly.
But in terms of the economy, what I would like to see is conversation, initially conversation. I say conversation because I don't know the actual solution yet or how to implement it. But I know that the systems that we've been operating under don't work. Clearly, our healthcare system is not designed for everybody. And the reason it's collapsed is because everybody's getting hit.
Got it.
And it's not designed for everybody to really be well with it. Maybe that was the intention at one point, but we still don't have universal health care in the United States, and other countries do. Right. So clearly our healthcare system needs disruption and a total redesign, a totally new blueprint. Healthcare education system is being totally redesigned. My mother told me that she saw something on the news the other day that people were talking about how education is never going to be the same after this. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's clearly very different now. And there are things to be learned from it, how different it is. Maybe we could do interesting things with that, like going back to the whole concept of breaking down cultural borders through innovation and ideas, like giving a child access here in Puerto Rico, giving them access to a classroom in London, or France, to see what they're talking about or they're doing. We have the technology to do these things, whether that's through VR or just teleconferencing. There's a company, I can't remember the name of it, but they actually build these portals. And so you can see the full body. So if someone's they can give a violin lesson. Like somebody in Washington, D.C. can give a violin lesson to people in Syria. No, it's just a big portal. You go into this crate, and then it's fully, you can see. So it's different than Skype in that you get the full body experience and you get more of a feel for the people. But anyway, going back to the whole systems issue that I'm looking at. So healthcare, education, financial, obviously not working at all. Energy needs to change. We've known that for many years, climate change. So the world has been on lockdown collectively, and we've all been feeling like we're losing something, whether we've lost loved ones to the disease, or we know people who have lost loved ones. We lost jobs, losing money, losing food, losing access to just social, losing access to physical contact, seeing people. We've all lost something, right? So the world, I think, in many ways has been collectively grieving. So we've been on pause, but what I want to know is, are the decision makers, the leaders in government, or the people that have built the economic systems or that keep them running, are they stopping and saying, okay, people in their homes are going inward and going through transformations or reinventing themselves, like you said. Now is the time to reinvent our global systems, our economic systems, our healthcare systems. That's what I really want to see, because there's a lot of initiatives taken that specific industries do, like different sectors, like in the tech sector. There's a lot of initiatives happening where there's unconscious bias programs, or there's more paternity or maternity leave, or there's programs done so that to build more of a pipeline for women, to get more women in tech, right? And great, we can do that, but nothing is going to fundamentally change unless the systems we're operating under change. And the thing is I think we've been operating in a way where we're serving the system. The systems are supposed to be serving us. And that's where the whole power of consumerism comes into play. I want people to start optimizing their power as a consumer more. That's another conversation, but so I don't know where things are going to go, but that's where I would like them to go. As I just want to know, is the government having these conversations? Like, are healthcare companies having these conversations, or are they still too much in reactive mode because none of us were prepared for the pandemic?
Yes, that is a valid question. And I think what you're pointing towards is us as individuals are the solution by our buying choices and what we do with our time and how we are learning and how we're keeping a broader cultural perspective, if I'm hearing you, because with that, you have fresh ideas and you have more tolerance.
Yeah, and I think the more that we're able to have the space and time to go inward and heal and transform, whatever word you want to use for what you've been doing at home. Yep. Some people are probably going crazy. But the more we're able to do that, the more our vision of what is just and sound and fair and freedom, the more that evolves and changes. So I think we will tolerate, we start to just, our tolerance level for anything less than something that serves everybody will start to just decrease and more. So the more that just, because people say, well, what can I do? I'm not an economist. I don't know I'm not going to go lobby in DC for how to change our healthcare system, right? But your power as a consumer, and then just your power as an individual who's choosing to do internal work and to be more conscious about what how you're treating yourself, how you're treating the planet, how you're treating others. There's no way that a person can go through that process without also looking at the way the world is being run and starting to question it.
I think that's key. Yeah. You're going to leave me and many others watching.
I'm writing I'm writing an article about where I'm featuring 4 different economists from different parts of the world and how they think our economic systems would be better. How would they like to see them be transformed?
Is that or can you fill us in on kind of what you're hearing and feeling so far of, with the articles?
I don't want to give too much away, but I will say that focusing less on GDP and more on well-being is a theme.
Got it.
The women economists that I interviewed both said that. The men didn't go into that, but I didn't tell any of them who I was talking to. I just said I'm featuring some economists in this but I learned I want to hang out with economists more. They know their stuff.
That's good.
Yeah.
Interesting. So maybe kind of leaving, this is an unusual maybe way to wrap up the conversation. In our conversations, a key theme that's came up is gratitude and its importance. And we're talking about well-being in this time. And many people out there are probably like us, it's an interesting time and your mind can go in different directions. What role does gratitude play in kind of your life and kind of how things have developed, and just kind of leaving it open?
Yeah, for me, I think from my perspective, gratitude personally is the only way I can really be present and move forward. If I'm not in gratitude, I'm stuck or I'm running over the past or I'm worried about the future. And so just to give you some context about it, the last 2 weeks, I was really working on having more acceptance for certain things happening in my life and just for everything that we're all going through together in the world because of the pandemic. And so I reached a pretty good place of acceptance before I came to Via Vista last week. And then over the weekend, I reached a really deep place of gratitude. Gratitude was the next level. And I felt it in my body. Yeah. And I'm a big believer that when you feel a mindset shift in your body, then you're not able to go back to the old way. Your mind might want to go back there because of habit. But once we feel something in their body, we're actually transforming. Sure. Our DNA is actually changing. And so that I realized, I started to see everything much more clearly. I started to just feel great about the present and not worried about the future, just gradually taking things day by day, and then, being in it and beyond acceptance, just being grateful for the things that I do have right now, because, there's plenty of people outside of our community that are starving, that are they're living in refugee camps. I mean, the most marginalized groups are anytime there's a problem going on in the world, the most marginalized groups are hit by it harder. Right. And so while I've been grieving and feeling heartbroken in many ways, like many people, still had it okay. Like I'm able to work from here, we're remotely, we're able to communicate and to connect with people online. We're pretty good. We're so, it's not that bad. I mean, it's an adjustment and it's frustrating. Yeah. But it doesn't have to feel torturous.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, very good. I appreciate you coming on. This will be, a lot re-looped on YouTube if you missed portions of it. We'll be tuning in weekly, so look forward to that. Check out the link below for her stellar storytelling course. You're definitely going to want to look into that. It's going to be coming out soon. And yeah, I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very good.